Welcome to a new segment of Front Row, hosted by Economy.lk. And today we are in conversation with Captain Ravindra Jayawickreme, CEO of Hambantota International Port Services.
Right.
Captain Jayawickreme, I mean, we've heard a lot about how Sri Lanka is in the region, how it can be a regional hub or even an Indian Ocean hub, as a matter of fact, and how the ports, whether it be the Colombo port or the Hambantota port, can become the catalyst to become that regional hub. However, at the same time, we've also seen that the Hambantota port thus far hasn't necessarily performed to its expectations. Moving forward, now that we are in a joint venture with a Chinese company as well, what uniquely are you doing to make Hambantota port a much more kind of engaging and a more favorable entity for people to travel through?
Well, first and foremost, what I would say is that just because you build a port right in the middle of a very busy highway, so to speak, does not mean that the vessels are going to stop over. You have to have a product, right? And you can't just have one single product. You have to have an overall product that the client requires. Just a port to come and stop, take some bunkers of fuel and then going off, that's not enough. Today's shipping world is very, very competitive. Ships are run on shoestring budgets. Shipping companies are falling apart, huge mergers taking place. That's mainly because they are in a bad way. So they are counting their pennies, literally counting their pennies. So they want the best type of service that they require for their money's worth and a little bit more. So just as I said again, just because you have a port there, that does not mean that they are going to come. That's number one. So how are we going to address that particular issue? Well, we are not going to compete with Colombo for transshipment cargo. That is out of the question. Colombo has still more potential for transshipment cargoes, so we are not going to eat into that pie. What we are aspiring to do is generate our own cargo within the Hambantota district. And to do that, Hambantota basically does not have any or very little industries. So we have to bring in more foreign investment to set up their industries in Hambantota. Towards that, the government is also going to establish a special economic zone just outside the port. And within the port area, we have about 11.5 square kilometers of land available. And that is going to be our thrust area to bring in industries. So these industries can bring in their raw material free of taxes because there is a bonded area, and do their manufacturing within the zone and do their exports from Hambantota itself. So we are having the infrastructure there, the port, the airport is close by, the highway is going to be completed by the end of next year, and there'll be a linking road from the airport to the seaport also. So all the infrastructure will be in place basically by the end of next year, and we are just hoping that things will take off as far as industries are concerned.
Right. I mean, there has been quite a lot of criticism in terms of, that a Chinese investor has come into this port and is kind of operating this port as well. Was it impossible for the Sri Lankan Ports Authority, for example, to run this port, or is China bringing in this unique knowledge value that can create it along with the industrial zone that is kind of coming in with the Chinese investments?
But the Sri Lanka Ports Authority, it's not that they couldn't do that port properly. It's just that they didn't have the finances to develop the port a little bit more further. Not by per se, when I'm talking about is not only the port infrastructure, but when you are going to bring in industries, you need a lot more infrastructure. So the SLPA was not in a position to do that, whereas China merchants, they are in a position to do that, and that is the agreement with the government that they'll be in addition to the money that they have paid the government for the lease, that they'll be investing another further 500 million, at least 500 million US dollars in infrastructure build-up. So that is the amount of money that we're talking about. And also coupled with that, we have their expertise in port management. We have their global connectivity, and of course the the drive and the passion that this company has as a private sector organization to make Hambantota Port workable.
Right. I mean, there's some commentary also regarding the policy framework that there are certain policy obstacles in terms of making Sri Lanka either be a logistics hub or even more competitive in the ports kind of world. What sort of policy regulations or liberalizations do you foresee are needed to make a port like Hambantota more competitive in the world?
I can't pinpoint on any one particular policy, but it's a gamut of policies that we have, a gamut of rules, regulations and shackles that we have for this industry. It is not only the port industry that we are talking of, it's the industrialists that will be coming and investing and starting off their businesses, it's the environmental issues that are there. It is not only the land-based environment, we're talking about the marine-based environment also, and then the shipping regulations. So there's a gamut of rules and regulations that are sort of stifling growth of a port. The logistics part of things in Sri Lanka, we do have a good road connection to Hambantota, but there is no rail connection. Now rail is going to be the cheapest form of transport, but we don't have proper rail connection. Maybe in a few years' time we might have it up to Hambantota, but that's a big question mark. So these are the huge drawbacks that we are having, or we've been having, to see Hambantota grow.
Right. And in terms of getting the locals involved, what sort of employment opportunities are being created, or does Hambantota have that labour capacity to provide, to supply the demands that are required in having a hub like this?
But right now I would say Hambantota does have numbers, but numbers is not going to solve our problem. So those numbers, they have to be trained and they have to have some value to bring into whatever industry they are going to work in. So towards that we have just started off with some community projects. Initially we have gone into some of the schools and the periphery of the port, and we are having discussions with the principals as to tell the students as to what sort of knowledge base that we are looking for, what sort of vocational training that we are looking for. We've gone to the vocational training institute near the port. So we just started off. We are just a port that has been in existence for the last 9 months. So we've got a long way to go. And of course, sad to say that there is lots of misconceptions about the port around Hambantota as well as the whole country. So we have basically to get ourselves established and be accepted, we have a bit of an uphill struggle, unfortunately. But we are up for challenges, and that's what this industry is all about. And I would say we are really very optimistic about the port of Hambantota.
So let's address the kind of the big misconception about this. Sri Lanka as a country does not gain from this, that it's China that's going to gain all and kind of control the entire, the area. Let's address that. What are the benefits that Hambantota port is going to bring to Sri Lanka as a country?
Right. First misconception, that we have sold off the port of Hambantota to China. We have not sold off the port. It has been given on a 99-year-old lease for 1,120 odd million US dollars. That's a lease payment. Then the Sri Lanka Ports Authority has a certain percentage stake in the two companies that are running the Hambantota port. There is what is known as the Hambantota International Ports Group and the Hambantota International Port Services. In Hambantota International Port Services, Sri Lanka Ports Authority has a controlling stake of 50.9%. In the Hambantota International Ports Group, SLPA has a 15% stake. Now this stake could increase within a period of 10 years depending on the SLPA's requirements. And there is further, if I remember right, in about 70 years where the SLPA could buy back the port at present values. Right? So that is one of the biggest misconceptions that people have about the port of Hambantota. Going from there, the people's attitude towards this port, it has to change. That this is a port that is going to develop and be positive for their livelihood in Hambantota. So those are the basic areas that we are looking for.
Okay, thank you very much, Captain. And I hope that this in itself was insightful for the general public to understand these misconceptions and understand the unique benefits that Hambantota Port can provide to the Sri Lankan economy. Thank you very much, and join us for another segment of Front Row hosted by Economy.lk soon.